Now, two things here. Number one, if you go back to our metaphor, this is the routine side. This is being offshore, racing to the cheapest cost provider, leaving us to compete with this. The second thing to keep in mind is that if you look at these folks right here, this guy's name is Ritesh. You think Ritesh wants to do routine work for the next 50 years? No, he's doing routine work now, that's for sure. Basic computer programming, bug fixing, fabrication, nothing too exotic. Do you think Ritesh wants to do routine work for the next 50 years? No way. Why? Because routine work is boring. Why else? Because Malaysia might do it for less than Ritesh is doing it. Because Vietnam might do it for less than that. Because the Philippines might do it for less than that. This routine left brain work now races to wherever in the world it can get done the cheapest. Let's go to the next one. Abundance Asia automation. Abundance Asia automation. Here's the story, it's very simple. Last century, machines replaced our back, our muscle. This century, software is replacing our brains. But what part of the brain can software replace? The artistic, empathic, inventive side? Not yet. Or the logical, linear, sequential, rule-based side. So you now see certain kinds of white-collar functions getting nibbled, and to my mind soon gobbled, by automation. Let me give you a delicious example from law. Okay, this august profession. This profession that's impervious to all of these other kinds of forces. Let me give you an example of how something even like law can be automated. I'll give you an example from the US and then we'll bring it to the UK. Let's say that I live in Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C., if you want to get a divorce, an uncontested divorce, and you go to a lawyer for an uncontested divorce, it's going to cost you about $3,000 US. But an uncontested divorce isn't very complicated, right? It's uncontested. What does a lawyer in an uncontested divorce actually do? Fills out forms, right? Well, that's a stupid question in some ways, because obviously I have some legal training, and obviously the first thing a lawyer in an uncontested divorce does is try to make it contested. But assuming that he or she can't do that, then you're exactly right. It's filling out forms. It's routine work. We could list all the steps. What happens to routine work? It gets offshored or it gets automated. So now, in America, you have a choice. You can go to that lawyer for $3,000, or you can go to CompleteCase.com for affordable divorce solutions. What happens at CompleteCase.com? You go to the site, you look at what US state you live in, you fill out you check the residency requirements, you click a button, click, you get the form, you fill out the form yourself, click. They send it to a lawyer to basically look it over so they don't get hit with a charge with unauthorized practice of law. The lawyer looks it over, he blesses it, I bless thee. They send it off to the courthouse, and you've got yourself a divorce, not for $3,000 US, or $2,500 US, or $2,000 US, or $1,000 US, or $500 US, but for $199 US. It's an alarming number of pens just began to move. I just want to say that this one is only in the US right now. But you're right, it's a very good deal. It's a very good deal, except if you're the lawyer doing that routine work, because you've got a competitor coming in charging 90+% less. Now, there are a number of these kinds of options. Here's another one called three-step divorce. See that? Answer questions, print docs, file. It's routine work. So the routine work just races to the bottom. We think of law, or at least I was sort of, when I was trained as a lawyer, I was sort of led to believe that law was some kind of august profession, that it was more than simply a vocation. It was like you're an officer of the court. It has this almost regal, august way of thinking of itself. Now, look how they talk about law. Here's another one, another place in America that will do an uncontested divorce for you. 123divorceme.com. All right, it's almost a mockery of the profession. Now, lest you think this is another peculiar American thing, I point you to Mr. Mark Keenan. And I encourage you, for those of you who apparently were shopping just before, to go to divorce-online.co.uk, where instead of saying, it has a more kind of quintessentially British tagline, because it says here, if you go to the site, it says, sadly, not all marriages last. You can get a divorce. I think it's the elementary divorce, you can get it for £69 rather than go to a solicitor. You see it with tax preparation in the US. Last year, Americans freaked out because there were 1 million US tax returns done in India, because an Indian chartered accountant, an Indian CPA, makes about $500 a month. No way to compete with that. And no way, I mean, a chartered accountant in India makes $500 US a month. You just can't compete with that if you're an American. People went nuts over that. No one says a word, though, about this thing here called TurboTax. 21 million Americans did their taxes on a piece of software, $29 piece of software. Also available in Canada. Even in Australia, there's a service called yourdiagnosis.com that routinizes medical diagnosis. So if you stack this up, abundance, Asia, automation, it's tilting the scales, making these left brain abilities necessary but not sufficient, these right brain abilities the first among equals. In this world, you have to ask yourself 3 questions, 3 very hard-headed questions. You need to look at what you're doing and ask yourself 3 questions. Can someone overseas do it cheaper? Can a computer do it faster? And is what you're selling in demand in an age of abundance? That's the whole thing right there. And the abilities that we've framed much of advanced economies around don't fully answer those questions. Those left brain abilities still matter, but they matter less. The right brain abilities are the ones among equals. We tend to obsess over high tech, and high tech is still important, but what really matters are abilities that are high concept and high touch. Hard to outsource, hard to automate, and that deliver significance along with utility. Hard to send overseas, hard to reduce to lines of code, and that satisfy one of these 2 strategies of an abundant age. Let me show you just 2 more quick things, and then we'll wrap up. I'm going to show you one more room-emptying chart. This is a truly room-emptying chart right here. It basically reduces the economy to this simple formulation. This axis here is affluence, globalization, and technology, and this axis is time. Okay, we started out as farmers here. Here's the agriculture age. What happens? People get richer, so they want things beyond food. Globalization takes hold, so we can import food more cheaply from other places. Technology improves. This is a big one for agriculture. And we can crank out more food with fewer people. Those forces gather enough steam, boom, move us into the industrial age, the age of factory workers. All right, what happens? Same thing happens again. We get richer, so we want things beyond mass-produced goods. Globalization takes hold, so we can import mass-produced goods more cheaply from elsewhere. Technology improves, so we can crank out more stuff in factories with fewer people. Those forces gather enough steam, boom, move us into the information age, the age of what Peter Drucker famously called knowledge workers. Well, what happens? It's the same thing. It's like a friggin' movie sequel, right? You know, Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3. The same thing happens again. We get richer, so we want things beyond basic information and routine services. We want designer toilet brushes, we want massages, we want iPods. Technology improves, so we can do information work faster with fewer people. And globalization takes hold, and we can essentially import that knowledge work from places like India. Those forces gather enough steam, boom, move us into what we're in now, the conceptual age, the age of creators and empathizers, the age of people who are creators and empathizers. This is the era that we're living in, and it calls on a very different suite of abilities. Now, let me show you, my wife hates this chart, and she said that it completely undermines your theory about the move toward right-brainness because it's the most kind of pathologically left-brain chart you could ever render. And so my team of advisors have implored me to do something else, and so we finally figured out a way to render this evolution of work in a more right-brain way, which is this. All right, we started out as primates, then we became farmers. Okay, now I know some of you are going to argue I'm skipping some history right in here. Factory workers, knowledge workers, and now creators and empathizers. Let me wrap up by saying just a few quick things. In this world, I think there are 6 abilities that I think matter most. They are design, story, symphony, empathy, play, and meaning. We can talk more about them in Q&A.